In the early 2000s, banks across the United States were dealing with a growing problem. Customers were reporting fraudulent charges on their credit cards, sometimes just days after using them at major retail stores. At first, it didn't seem unusual. Credit card fraud had always existed. But this was different. The numbers were too large, the fraud was too widespread, and the victims didn't have anything obvious in common. Investigators couldn't find a single breach, a single company, or a single criminal group responsible. What they didn't know yet was that one hacker had quietly found a way into the financial system and stayed there for years. His name was Albert Gonzalez. Albert Gonzalez didn't fit the stereotype of a criminal mastermind. He wasn't hiding overseas or living under a fake identity. He was social, confident, and deeply embedded in online hacker communities. Under the username Soup Nazi, he spent years building trust on underground forums where stolen credit card data was traded. But Gonzalez wasn't just another criminal in those spaces. In 2003, he was arrested for credit card fraud, and instead of serving a long prison sentence, he made a deal. Gonzalez became a confidential informant for the United States Secret Service. His job was to help investigators identify cybercriminals, understand underground forums, and provide insight into how digital fraud worked. For a while, he did exactly that. But behind the scenes, something else was happening. Around 2005, Gonzalez began thinking bigger. Instead of stealing credit cards one by one, he realized there was a more efficient way. Go straight to the source. Every time a customer swiped a credit card at a store, that data traveled through the company's network before reaching a payment processor. If someone could quietly access that system, they wouldn't need to scam individuals anymore. They could collect everything. And Gonzalez found companies that made it possible. One of his biggest targets was TJX Companies, the parent company of stores like TJ Maxx, Marshalls, and Home Goods. At the time, TJX was processing millions of card transactions every day, but their security systems were outdated. Many of their stores still relied on weak wireless networks. That weakness gave Gonzalez an opening. Instead of breaking into corporate offices, Gonzalez and his crew sat in parking lots. Using laptops and antennas, they intercepted wireless traffic from TJX stores. Because the encryption was weak, they could capture payment data as it moved between registers and internal servers. Once they had access, they went further. They installed malware, small programs designed to quietly record credit card numbers every time a customer made a purchase. The malware didn't disrupt operations, it didn't slow systems down, and employees had no idea anything was wrong. For customers, everything looked normal. This is what made the attack so effective. There was no dramatic moment, no shutdown, no warning sign. The theft happened slowly, invisibly, day after day. Weeks turned into months, months turned into years. By the time TJX detected unusual activity in 2007, the damage was already done. More than 45 million credit and debit card numbers had been stolen. And TJX wasn't the only victim. Gonzalez used the same techniques against other companies, including Heartland Payment Systems, one of the largest payment processors in the United States. Heartland handled transactions for thousands of businesses across the country. When attackers infiltrated its network, they captured card data at an even larger scale. That single breach exposed 130 million credit card numbers. Combined, Gonzalez and his group were responsible for stealing over 170 million cards, the largest credit card theft in U.S. history at the time. But stealing the data was only half the operation. The real money came from what happened next. Gonzalez didn't use the cards himself. Instead, he sold them on underground forums, packaging the data into batches sorted by bank, card type, and country. Buyers used the data to create counterfeit cards, make fraudulent purchases, drain accounts, resell the information again. Each card might sell for only a few dollars, but at that scale, the profits were enormous. Millions of stolen cards meant millions in criminal revenue. All of this was happening while Gonzalez was still cooperating with the government. That's what makes the case so shocking. Behind closed doors, he was helping investigators understand cybercrime. At the same time, he was running one of the biggest cybercrime operations in history. Eventually, investigators noticed something they couldn't ignore. Gonzalez was living far beyond his reported income. Luxury cars, high-end electronics, stacks of cash. The lifestyle didn't match the story. In 2008, federal agents searched his apartment. What they found erased any doubt. Hidden inside were laptops, external hard drives, and detailed logs that connected Gonzalez directly to the breaches. The evidence showed he wasn't just involved. He was central to the operation. The informant had become the criminal. In 2010, Albert Gonzalez pleaded guilty to multiple federal charges, including wire fraud, computer hacking, and identity theft. He was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison, one of the harshest sentences ever given for cybercrime in the United States. The fallout didn't stop there. TJX paid hundreds of millions of dollars in settlements and legal costs. Heartland Payment Systems suffered massive financial losses and reputational damage. The retail industry was forced to rethink how payment systems were protected. This case changed cybersecurity forever. It accelerated the adoption of stronger encryption. It pushed companies toward better monitoring. And it proved that cybercrime wasn't just about lone hackers. It was about systemic weaknesses. Most importantly, it showed how dangerous trust can be when it's misplaced. Albert Gonzalez wasn't caught because of advanced technology. He was caught because people noticed the human cracks. And that's the real lesson. Cybercrime doesn't always come from the shadows. Sometimes it comes from someone standing right in the middle of the system, unnoticed, trusted, and quietly stealing everything. What made the Albert Gonzalez case especially disturbing wasn't just the scale of the theft. It was how long it went unnoticed. For years, millions of people unknowingly swiped their credit cards through compromised systems. Banks refunded charges, customers replaced cards, life went on. But behind the scenes, the stolen data kept circulating. Even years after the breaches were exposed, card numbers from Gonzalez's operation were still being resold, reused, and recycled across underground markets. The damage didn't stop when he was arrested. It lingered. The case also forced companies to confront an uncomfortable truth. These breaches didn't happen because of brilliant hacking tools or zero-day exploits. They happened because of neglected systems, outdated security, and assumptions that no one would ever try. Attackers didn't need to break down the front door. They walked through the side entrance that had been left open for years. For law enforcement, the case became a warning about overconfidence. Gonzalez had access to investigations. He understood how authorities thought, and he used that knowledge to stay ahead. It proved that insider trust, even when legally sanctioned, could become a liability if it wasn't constantly verified. For the retail industry, the fallout reshaped everything. Payment systems were redesigned. Stronger encryption became standard. New compliance rules were introduced to prevent the same weaknesses from being exploited again. Entire security frameworks were built because of what one hacker exposed. But perhaps the most important lesson is the simplest one. Cybercrime doesn't always arrive loudly. There are no alarms, no flashing warnings, no moment where everything suddenly breaks. Sometimes it's quiet. It blends into normal business operations. It hides inside routine transactions. And by the time anyone notices, the damage is already done. Albert Gonzalez didn't steal credit cards in a single night. He stole them patiently, systematically, and for years. And that's why this case is still studied today. Because it shows how modern cybercrime really works, not through chaos, but through persistence, trust, and systems that were never designed to be tested this way.